Hyunwoo Kim stared at the massive holographic display showing tiny red dots moving across a star map. Each red dot was an enemy ship. There were hundreds of them. The blue dots representing the coalition forces looked pathetically small in comparison. "The situation grows worse each day," said Kethmar, her crystalline fingers clicking against the metal table. The Villani commander's voice carried the weight of 1,000 years of military tradition. "We have lost 12 systems in the past month. Alone." Hyunwoo shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The seat was designed for humans, but still felt wrong somehow. Everything about this situation felt wrong. 3 months ago, he had been debugging code in his small apartment in Seoul. Now he sat in a war room surrounded by alien generals who looked to him for answers he did not have. "Commander Kim!" rumbled Cole 9, the massive granite-like being whose voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Your people have remained silent during our discussions. We require human tactical input." The insectoid Thrix representative, Zach 41, made a series of rapid clicks that the translator rendered as impatience. "The Dominion advances while we debate. Human strategic doctrine must be implemented immediately." Hyunwoo wanted to laugh, but the sound would probably come out as a hysterical sob. Human strategic doctrine. If only they knew. He glanced down at the worn notebook in his lap. The same notebook these brilliant alien minds believed contained the secrets of human warfare. The truth was far more embarrassing. The notebook contained his notes for the Goblin King's Fortress, an adventure he had been planning to run for his D&D group before the draft notice arrived. Page after page of monster stats, treasure tables, and trap mechanisms. His players back home probably wondered why he had stopped responding to their group chat 3 months ago. "The current formation is ineffective," Hyunwoo said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. The words felt strange in his mouth. He was improvising based on last week's session notes, where his players had complained about fighting enemies in a straight line. Kethmar leaned forward, her multifaceted, eyes reflecting the hologram's light. "Explain." Hyunwoo opened his notebook to a random page. His handwriting stared back at him. "Goblin tactics. Split party into smaller groups. Use terrain advantage. Hit-and-run attacks." He had written those notes after watching his players. "Struggle against a large goblin army." "We should split our forces," he said, his confidence growing slightly as he remembered how well that session had gone. "Smaller groups can move faster and hit targets the enemy does not expect." The alien commanders exchanged glances. Zach 41's clicking grew more rapid. "Split forces? This contradicts standard military procedure. Concentrated firepower ensures victory." "Not always," Hyunwoo replied, surprising himself with his certainty. He flipped through his notebook, finding his notes on flanking maneuvers. "Look at our enemy formations. They expect us to meet them head-on with our main fleet. What if we do not give them what they expect?" Cole 9's rocky features shifted into what might have been interest. "Continue." Hyunwoo stood and approached the hologram. His hands shook slightly as he pointed to different areas of the star map. "Instead of one big battle, we create many small battles. Send fast ships around the sides while the main force keeps their attention. Like..." He paused, almost saying, "like surrounding a boss monster," but caught himself. "Like hunters surrounding prey." The room fell silent except for the soft humming of the ship's systems. Hyunwoo could feel their eyes on him, weighing his words. He had no idea if any of this would actually work in real space combat, but it had worked great when his rogue player had suggested the same tactic against the Goblin King. "The mathematics are complex," Kethmar said slowly. "Coordinating multiple small engagements requires precise timing. And communication," added Zach 41. "The hive mind finds merit in distributed operations, but individual units lack coordination." Hyunwoo nodded eagerly. "That is where the terrain comes in. We use asteroid fields, gas clouds, anything that gives us cover and splits up their formations. Force them to fight on our terms, not theirs." He was getting excited now, remembering how his players had used the goblin caves to their advantage. His friend Jin Ho had been particularly clever about using narrow passages to prevent the goblins from surrounding them. "This is unorthodox," Call 9 rumbled. "But desperation requires new approaches. How do you propose we test this strategy?" Hyunwoo felt a moment of panic. Test it? With real ships and real lives? He looked down at his notebook again, finding his notes about the Goblin Patrol encounter. "Start small. There is a Dominion patrol in the Kepler system. 3 ships, maybe. 4. We send in 2 groups. One distracts them from the front, the other hits them from behind. A pincer movement," Kethmar mused. "Simple but potentially effective against overconfident enemies." "The Dominion patrols have grown careless," Zach 41 clicked. "They believe we are beaten. This could work." Hyunwoo sat back down, his legs suddenly feeling weak. Were they actually going to try this? His ridiculous plan based on fighting imaginary goblins with imaginary swords? "I will assign Captain Sojin Park to coordinate communications," Cole 9 announced. "Her human perspective will complement your tactical insights, Commander Kim." The meeting ended with more discussion about ship assignments and timing, but Hyunwoo barely listened. His mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. These incredibly advanced beings, veterans of countless wars, were taking military advice from his D&D notes. Later, alone in his quarters, Hyunwoo opened his laptop and started typing a message to his gaming group back home. Then he stopped. How could he explain any of this? "Hey guys, sorry I missed the last few sessions. I accidentally became a space war general using our campaign notes." Instead, he deleted the message and opened his notebook again. If he was going to keep this charade going, he needed to study his own adventure designs more carefully. The Goblin King campaign had 6 more encounters. If the patrol mission succeeded, they would probably want bigger plans. He found his notes on the Siege of Shadowkeep and started reading. Maybe, just maybe, he could turn his hobby into something that would actually help end this war. Even if nobody ever learned the truth about humanity's greatest military strategist and his collection of 20-sided dice. Outside his window, stars wheeled slowly past as the ship moved toward their next battle. Somewhere out there, Dominion forces prepared for conventional warfare, never suspecting they were about to face tactics developed around a kitchen table by friends arguing over pizza and character sheets. Hyunwoo closed his notebook and tried to sleep, dreaming of goblins and starships and the thin line between fantasy and reality. The bridge of the coalition ship hummed with nervous energy as Captain Sojin Park checked her communication systems for the 3rd time. Through the view screen, she could see the distant glimmer of stars in the Kepler system. Somewhere among those points of light waited 3 Dominion patrol ships, unaware that they were about to become test subjects for human military theory. "Strike Force Alpha in position," came the voice of Commander Tae-Won through the comm system. His ships held position behind a large asteroid, hidden from enemy sensors. "Strike Force Beta ready," reported Lieutenant Min-Soo from the opposite side of the system. "Waiting for your signal, Commander Kim." So-Jin glanced at Hyunwoo, who stood frozen beside the tactical display. His notebook lay open in his hands, and she could see him frantically reading something on the pages. From her angle, the writing looked strange. Were those drawings of swords and shields? "Commander?" she prompted gently. Hyunwoo looked up, his eyes wide with panic. "Right. Yes. Begin the first phase." He looked back at his notebook. "Alpha Team, engage the enemy directly. Make them think we are attacking with everything we have." "Understood," Tae-Won replied. "Beginning attack run." On the display, 3 blue dots representing Alpha Team moved toward 3 red dots. The Dominion ships immediately turned to face them, forming their standard defensive line. Sojin had seen this pattern dozens of times before. The enemy always responded the same way to direct attacks. They are taking the bait, she reported. All 3 ships moving to intercept Alpha Team. Hyunwoo nodded, still reading from his notebook. Sojin squinted at the pages. Was that a map of some kind? It looked like a castle floor plan with rooms and corridors marked out. Beta Team, Hyunwoo said into his comm unit. Move in from behind. Target their engines first. We want to disable them, not destroy them. Engines first? That is unusual, came Min-Soo's voice. Most battles focus on weapons systems. Trust me, Hyunwoo replied, though his voice shook slightly. Hit their movement first, then they cannot run when things go wrong for them. Sojin watched the tactical display with growing amazement. Beta Team swept in from the rear while the Dominion ships focused all their attention on Alpha Team's frontal assault. The enemy never saw them coming. Direct. Hit on enemy ship 1, Min-Soo reported excitedly. Their engines are offline. Good. Hyunwoo flipped a page in his notebook. Alpha Team, fall back now. Make them think you are retreating. Retreat? Taewon sounded confused. We have them outnumbered. Just do it, Hyunwoo insisted. Fall. Back, but stay within weapons range. Sojin watched in fascination as Alpha Team pulled back. The 2 remaining Dominion ships, sensing victory, broke formation to pursue. That was their mistake. Beta Team, hit the 2nd ship now while they are spread out, Hyunwoo ordered. The coordination was perfect. As the Dominion ships chased Alpha Team, Beta Team struck from behind again. Within minutes, 2 enemy ships were disabled and the 3rd was surrounded. Incredible, breathed Kethmar from her observation post. The humans separated them using their own aggression against them. Victory achieved with minimal casualties, Cole 9 rumbled approvingly. No coalition ships lost. As the battle ended, Sojin noticed Hyunwoo quietly close his notebook and slip it into his jacket pocket. She had been watching him throughout the fight and something bothered her. Every command he gave seemed to come directly from those pages. Later that evening, Sojin found herself walking past Hyunwoo's quarters when she heard voices coming from inside. She paused at the door listening. No, you do not understand, Hyunwoo was saying. I need to know how you would handle a situation where the enemy has superior numbers but poor coordination. Another voice answered, crackling through what sounded like a video call. Dude, are you still working on that space campaign? I told you. Split them up. Use their numbers against them. But what if they have better technology? Hyunwoo asked. Then you need to be smarter, not stronger. Remember the Goblin Fortress? We won that by thinking creatively, not by fighting fair. Sojin's eyebrows rose. Goblin Fortress? What kind of military exercise involved goblins? Thanks, Jin-Ho, Hyunwoo said. I have to go. Same time next week? If you can make it. We still need to finish that dragon encounter? Sojin waited until the call ended, then knocked on the door. Hyunwoo opened it looking guilty. Oh, Captain Park, is everything wrong? May I come in? She asked. I wanted to discuss today's battle. Hyunwoo stepped aside nervously. Sojin noticed his laptop was still open, showing what looked like a video chat program. On his desk lay the notebook, open to a page covered with drawings and notes. Commander, I hope you do not mind me asking, she began carefully. But where did you learn these tactics? The Academy, of course, Hyunwoo replied quickly. Standard human military training. Sojin moved closer to the desk. The notebook page showed a detailed map of what looked like a medieval castle, complete with towers and walls. Written in the margins were notes about flanking the Orc chieftain and using the narrow corridors to control enemy movement. This is interesting, she said, pointing to the map. I have never seen this type of tactical diagram before. Hyunwoo quickly closed the notebook. It is a new format we are testing, very experimental. Sojin studied his face. She had been a communications officer for 5 years and had learned to read people. Hyunwoo was hiding something, but what? And more importantly, did it matter if his methods worked? "The battle today was brilliant," she said finally, using the enemy's aggression to break their formation, then striking when they were separated. Very creative thinking. "Thank you," Hyunwoo said, relaxing slightly. "I have a question, though. During the fight, you mentioned something about making them think we were retreating. How did you know they would pursue?" Hyunwoo opened his mouth, then closed it. They seemed like the type to chase a fleeing enemy." "The type?" Sojin pressed. "Based on what analysis?" "Experience," Hyunwoo said weakly. Sojin nodded slowly. Something was definitely strange here, but the results spoke for themselves. Today's victory had been their first real success in months. "Well, whatever your methods, please keep using them," she said. "The alien commanders are very impressed." After she left, Hyunwoo sank into his chair and opened his laptop again. His D&D group's chat window was still open, filled with excited messages about their next game session. If only they knew their casual gaming advice was helping win battles in actual space. He opened his notebook again and turned to the next adventure. The siege of Shadowkeep stared back at him. If today's small victory had impressed the commanders, what would they think of his plans for a full-scale assault? Hyunwoo began reading his notes more carefully. Tomorrow they would probably ask him to plan something bigger. He needed to be ready. 3 weeks after the Kepler victory, Hyunwoo found himself standing before a massive holographic display showing the Dominion stronghold at Vega Prime. The fortress station hung in space like a metal spider, its weapons platforms bristling, with enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. "Preliminary scans show heavy defensive systems," reported Kethmar, her crystalline form reflecting the blue light of the tactical display. "Direct assault would result in 70% casualty rates." Zach 41 clicked rapidly in agreement. "The Hive calculates similar losses. Traditional siege warfare requires overwhelming numbers we do not possess." Hyunwoo nodded absently while flipping through his notebook. He had been studying the Siege of Shadowkeep for days, trying to figure out how to translate his dungeon adventure into real military strategy. The fortress in his game had seemed impossible too, until his players found creative solutions. "What if we do not attack it like a fortress?" he said finally. Cole 9's massive stone features shifted into curiosity. "Explain, Commander Kim." Hyunwoo pointed to different sections of the enemy station. "Look at how they have organized their defenses. Heavy weapons pointing outward, fighters patrolling in standard formations. They expect us to come at them like a traditional army." He paused, remembering how his friend Dae-hyun had solved the Shadowkeep puzzle by thinking about character classes instead of military units. "We need different types of specialists working together," Hyunwoo continued. "Some ships focus on defense and taking damage. Others concentrate on speed and getting past enemy lines. Some provide support from a distance." The alien commanders exchanged glances. Sojin Park, who had been quietly observing from her communication station, leaned forward with interest. "You mean specialized roles instead of uniform fleet composition?" Kethmar asked. "Exactly," Hyunwoo said, gaining confidence. "The engineering core becomes our infiltration team. They sneak in and sabotage key systems while the heavy assault ships keep the defenders busy." He was translating directly from his notes now, where he had written, "Rogues disable traps while fighters tank." The boss. The concept seemed to work just as well in space. Meanwhile, our long-range ships stay back and provide covering fire like... He caught himself before saying, "like wizards casting spells from the rear." Instead, he finished, "like artillery. Support." Zach 41's clicking grew excited. The Hive understands. Coordinated specialization allows efficiency beyond individual capability. As the meeting continued, Hyunwoo noticed Commander Dae-hyun Lee watching him with a strange expression. The Marine had been silent throughout most recent briefings, but his eyes seemed to study every word Hyunwoo spoke. After the session ended, Dae-hyun approached him in the corridor. Commander Kim, may I speak with you privately? Hyun-woo's heart jumped. Had someone finally figured out his secret? Of course. They walked to an empty observation deck overlooking the hangar bay. Below them, technicians worked on fighter craft, while supply crews loaded ammunition. Your tactical methods are fascinating, Dae-hyun began carefully. I have been studying human military history for years, but I cannot find precedent for your approaches. They are experimental, Hyun-woo replied weakly. Dae-hyun smiled. I think I know where they come from. Hyun-woo felt his stomach drop. This was it. His career as an accidental war hero was about to end in humiliation. You play games, do not you? Dae-hyun continued. Strategy games. The kind where you control different unit types with specialized abilities. Hyun-woo stared at him. That was not quite right, but it was close enough to be dangerous. He started to deny it, but Dae-hyun held up a hand. I do too, the Marine said quietly. Computer strategy games, board games, even some of those fantasy role-playing games. And you know what I realized? Those games teach you things that military academy never does. They do? Hyun-woo asked, surprised. Absolutely. Games force you to think creatively because the rules are different every time. In real military training, we learn standard procedures for standard situations. But wars are not standard. They are chaos. Dae-hyun gestured toward the hangar below. These alien commanders have centuries of experience, but they all learn the same way. Same tactics, same thinking patterns. You bring something completely different. But I am not really a strategist, Hyun-woo admitted quietly. Neither was Napoleon when he started, Dae-hyun replied with a grin. Look, I do not care where your ideas come from. They work. That fortress assault plan you outlined today? It is brilliant, and I want to help make it even better. Over the following days, Dae-hyun became Hyun-woo's unofficial translator, helping convert gaming concepts into military language the alien commanders could understand. When Hyun-woo talked about tanking damage, Dae-hyun explained it as defensive, positioning to draw enemy fire. When Hyun-woo mentioned cooldowns, Dae-hyun translated it as reload times and weapon cycling. The partnership worked perfectly. Hyun-woo provided creative solutions based on his gaming experience, while Dae-hyun handled the practical implementation details. Meanwhile, the Dominion forces were growing frustrated. Their military computers could not predict these strange, new tactics. Every time they prepared for conventional warfare, the coalition forces did something unexpected. Human strategic doctrine defies analysis, reported Admiral Vex Therian to the Dominion High Command. They employ seemingly random tactical variations that achieve impossible results. Then we must adapt, replied the Emperor's voice through the communication array. Study these humans more carefully, find their weaknesses. But the Dominion's problem was that they were looking for complex military theory where none existed. They analyzed Hyun-woo's victories, searching for ancient Earth battle tactics or advanced computer simulations. They never considered that their greatest enemy was improvising based on weekend hobby activities. Back on the coalition ship, Hyun-woo was finally starting to feel confident. His notebook was proving more valuable than any military textbook, and with Dae-hyun's help, he was learning to think beyond just copying his old campaign notes. The fortress assault begins tomorrow, So-jin announced during the evening briefing. All teams report ready for their specialized roles. Hyun-woo nodded, then noticed her watching him with the same curious expression she had worn for weeks. She suspected something too, but like Dae-hyun, she seemed more interested than suspicious. As the meeting dispersed, Hyun-woo opened his notebook to the Shadowkeep adventure one more time. Tomorrow would be their biggest test yet. He just hoped his players had been right about how to defeat the fortress's final defenses. Outside the viewports, stars wheeled past as the coalition fleet moved toward Vega Prime, carrying with them the strangest military strategy in galactic history. The emergency klaxon wailed through the coalition command ship as Hyun-woo raced to the bridge. 3 hours ago, they had been celebrating the successful assault on Vega Prime. Now, according to the urgent messages flooding the communication channels, everything had changed. "Report!" he called out as he burst through the bridge doors. Sojin Park turned from her station, her face pale. Long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. The Dominion has deployed something new. The main display showed a tactical overview that made Hyunwoo's blood run cold. Massive shapes moved through space, each one larger than the biggest coalition battleship. As he watched, one of the creatures opened what looked like a mouth and swallowed an entire asteroid. "By the ancestors," whispered Kethmar. "What are those things?" "Biological weapons," reported Zach 41, his clicking rapid with alarm. "The Hive has never encountered anything like them. They appear to be living ships that can adapt and grow stronger." Col 9's stone features remained calm, but his voice carried concern. "Our conventional weapons have little effect. They heal faster than we can damage them." Hyunwoo stared at the display, his mind racing. The creatures looked familiar somehow. Massive, nearly invulnerable, able to adapt to different attacks. Where had he seen something like this before? Then it hit him. He grabbed his notebook and flipped frantically through the pages until he found what he was looking for. Rise of the Tarrasque. The final adventure he had planned for his D&D campaign. The ultimate monster that could regenerate damage and adapt to whatever the players threw at it. "I need to see more data," he said quickly. "How do they move? What triggers their attacks?" "They seem drawn to large concentrations of ships," Sojin replied, studying her sensor readings. "When we mass our forces, they focus their attention and become more aggressive." Hyunwoo nodded, remembering his campaign notes. The Tarrasque had similar behavior patterns. It would focus on the biggest threat and ignore smaller targets until they became dangerous enough to notice. "We are fighting them wrong," he announced. "These things are like apex predators. They respond to threat levels, not just damage." Dae-hyun. Lee looked up from the tactical display. "What do you mean?" Hyunwoo opened his notebook and showed them his encounter notes. To the others, the drawings looked like abstract tactical diagrams, but he could see the familiar shape of his imaginary monster. "Look at their behavior pattern," he explained. "They get stronger when we fight them directly. But what if we control how strong they get?" "Elaborate," Kethmar demanded. "We divide our forces into specialized groups, just like we discussed before. Some teams focus on keeping the creatures busy without actually threatening them. Others work on objectives the creatures do not care about." He was remembering how his players had defeated the Tarrasque by avoiding direct confrontation while completing their mission goals around it. The monster was nearly invincible in a straight fight, but it was also predictable. "The creatures seem to ignore small groups that do not attack them directly," Sojin observed. "Our scout ships reported they could approach within several kilometers, without triggering aggressive responses." "Exactly!" Hyunwoo said excitedly. "So we send small teams to evacuate civilian populations while larger decoy forces keep the creatures distracted elsewhere." "But how do we actually stop them?" asked Dae-hyun. Hyunwoo flipped through his notes again. In his campaign, the Tarrasque had one critical weakness. It was vulnerable during specific phases of its attack cycle. "We need to study their attack patterns more carefully. I suspect they have vulnerable moments, times when they cannot adapt as quickly." Over the next several hours, Hyunwoo coordinated a completely different kind of battle. Instead of trying to destroy the creatures, coalition, forces focused on managing them like a complex puzzle. "Strike Team Alpha, maintain defensive positions but do not fire unless attacked," he ordered. "Strike Team Beta, begin civilian evacuation from Sector 7. "The creatures are following Alpha Team," Sojin reported. "They seem fixated on the larger force. Good. Teams Charlie and Delta, begin your approach to the communication array. Stay small, stay quiet." Staff Sergeant Min-Ho Choi, leading the demolitions team, checked in from his position near one of the creatures. Commander, I am within weapons range of what looks like a vulnerable spot. Permission to engage? Hyun-woo checked his notes quickly. Negative. Wait for the attack cycle to complete. You will know when. It will stop moving for approximately 30 seconds. How do you know that? Min-Ho asked. Pattern analysis, Hyun-woo replied, which was technically true. He had analyzed the pattern when designing the encounter for his players. The battle continued for hours, with coalition forces dancing around the massive creatures like insects, avoiding a giant's notice. Slowly, methodically, they evacuated civilians and secured strategic positions while the biological weapons focused on empty space, where the decoy forces led them in circles. Creature 1 entering dormant phase, Sojin announced. Energy signatures dropping. Now, Min-Ho, Hyun-woo called. You have 30 seconds. The demolitions expert and his team struck at the exact moment of vulnerability. Their charges detonated against what Hyun-woo's notes had labeled the regeneration core, though he had no idea what that actually meant in real terms. The massive creature shuddered and began to break apart. Incredible, breathed Kethmar. How? Did you know exactly when to strike? The pattern repeated every 47 minutes, Hyun-woo said, making up numbers that sounded scientific. All biological systems have predictable cycles. One by one, the other creatures fell to the same tactic. Wait for the vulnerable moment, strike precisely, then retreat before they could adapt. When the last creature dissolved into cosmic dust, the bridge erupted in celebration. Hyun-woo slumped in his chair, exhausted but amazed that his ridiculous plan had actually worked. Commander Kim, Cole 9 rumbled respectfully, your tactical innovations continue to astound us. This victory will be remembered throughout the galaxy. Later, as the fleet regrouped and damage reports came in, Sojin approached Hyun-woo at his station. That was remarkable, she said quietly. But I have to ask, how did you know so much about creatures no one had ever seen before? Hyun-woo looked at his notebook, still open to the Tarask encounter. Sometimes you just have to think like your enemy, he replied. Imagine what you would do if you were a nearly invincible monster and then plan around that. Sojin nodded, slowly, but her expression suggested she was still putting pieces together in her mind. As the coalition celebrated their impossible victory, Dominion command centers across the galaxy received reports that made no sense. Their ultimate biological weapons, decades in development, had been neutralized by tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. The war was far from over, but for the first time since it began, the Dominion High Command felt something they had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty about the outcome. The celebration in the Coalition's main conference room was unlike anything Hyun-woo had ever experienced. Representatives from dozens of worlds had gathered to honor the architect of their greatest victory. Kethmar presented him with a crystalline, metal that sparkled with inner light. Cole 9 offered a stone tablet carved with ancient symbols of respect. Even the normally reserved Zach 41 performed what appeared to be a ceremonial dance of appreciation. The hero of Vega Prime, the announcer called out as holographic cameras captured every moment for broadcast across the galaxy. The strategic genius who has revolutionized modern warfare. Hyun-woo smiled and waved, but inside his stomach churned with guilt. These beings were celebrating him for victories built on nothing more than weekend gaming sessions. The weight of their gratitude felt crushing. After the ceremony, he escaped to his quarters and immediately opened a secure communication channel to Earth. His D&D group's faces appeared on the screen, grinning and excited. "Dude, you missed another awesome session," his friend Jin-Ho complained. "We finally made it to the dragon's lair." "How did you handle the dragon?" Hyun-woo asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "Same way we always do," laughed Sung-min. "Teamwork and creative thinking. Why do you keep asking about hypothetical scenarios?" Are you designing some kind of mega campaign? Before Hyun-woo could answer, his door chimed. Captain Yoonji Nam, the tactical intelligence officer, stood in the hallway looking embarrassed. Sorry to interrupt, Commander, but I need to discuss the after-action reports. Hyun-woo quickly ended the call and invited her in. Yoonji was one of the few humans he had not worked with closely, preferring to analyze battles from a distance, rather than participate in planning sessions. I have been studying your tactical decisions, she began, settling into a chair across from his desk. The patterns are fascinating, but they do not match any known military doctrine. Here it comes, Hyun-woo thought. Another person ready to expose his secret. I think I understand your methodology, though, Yoonji continued. You approach each battle like a complex problem-solving exercise. Multiple variables, creative solutions, team coordination. She paused, studying his face. It reminds me of puzzle solving, the kind of thinking you develop from games and collaborative challenges. Hyun-woo remained silent, unsure how to respond. My background is in mathematics and logic puzzles, Yoonji explained. I recognize the thought patterns. You are not following traditional military strategy at all, are you? You are improvising solutions based on problem-solving skills. The admission came out before he could stop it. You figured it out. Figured what out exactly? She asked gently. That I am not really a military strategist. That I have been making this up as I go along, using knowledge from completely unrelated sources. Yoonji smiled. Commander, do you think that makes you less effective? It makes me a fraud. Does it? She challenged. You have won every engagement. You have saved thousands of lives. You have given the coalition hope when we had none. How does the source of your inspiration change those facts? Over the following days, word of Hyun-woo's alternative approach spread quietly among the human contingent. Instead of exposing him, his fellow humans began contributing their own unconventional knowledge. Lieutenant Min-soo, the pilot, shared insights from flight simulator games. Sergeant Young-ho applied lessons from strategy board games he played with his children. Even Captain So-jin began incorporating improvisational theater techniques into her communication strategies. We are like a secret society of gamers, Min-soo joked during an informal gathering in the recreation bay. Using our hobbies to win a galactic war. The alien commanders, meanwhile, grew increasingly frustrated trying to understand human tactical doctrine. Kethmar spent days analyzing mathematical models of Hyun-woo's decisions, searching for underlying patterns that did not exist. ZAC-41 attempted to integrate human randomness principles into Thrick's collective thinking, creating confusion in the hive mind. Col-9 began incorporating what he called creative chaos theory into standard military planning. Human strategic philosophy appears to embrace contradiction, Kethmar announced during a command briefing. They simultaneously employ maximum organization and complete unpredictability. The hive struggles to process such concepts, ZAC-41 clicked. How does one plan for the unplannable? Hyun-woo listened to their discussions with amazement. The aliens were developing their own interpretations of gaming concepts, accidentally making their forces more creative and adaptable. Perhaps that is the point, Col-9 rumbled thoughtfully. Human doctrine seems designed to prevent strategic stagnation. When the enemy cannot predict your actions, you maintain permanent tactical advantage. The success of this human approach began spreading throughout the coalition fleet. Ships that had followed rigid protocols for centuries started experimenting with flexible tactics. Crews that had never questioned orders began offering creative suggestions. The entire military structure became more dynamic and responsive. Meanwhile, Dominion intelligence continued their futile attempts to decode human strategy. They intercepted communication fragments mentioning dice rolls and character builds, but their analysts interpreted these as code words for advanced probability calculations and personnel optimization systems. The humans appear to use randomization, algorithms in their decision-making process, reported Intelligence Director Vex Korath. They also employ sophisticated psychological modeling they refer to as character development. The Dominion's response was to develop counter-strategies based on their misinterpretations. They created complex computer models to predict human randomness, not realizing they were trying to mathematically analyze the results of 20-sided dice and creative improvisation. As the coalition forces achieved victory after victory, Hyun-woo finally began to understand what was really happening. The specific source of his tactical knowledge mattered less than the thinking skills gaming had taught him. Creative problem-solving, teamwork, adaptation, and the willingness to try unconventional approaches. These were the real weapons he brought to the war. "I think I am finally ready for the big one," he told Dae-hyun during their daily planning session. "The Emperor's personal fleet?" Dae-hyun asked. Hyun-woo nodded, flipping through his notebook to the final adventure he had never run. The ultimate campaign finale. It was the most complex scenario he had ever designed, requiring everything his players had learned throughout their adventures. "Do you think it will work on this scale?" Dae-hyun wondered. "I think it is time to find out," Hyun-woo replied, studying his notes about the final boss encounter. "Besides, I am out of other adventures to adapt. If we are going to end this war, we need to improvise something completely new." Outside the viewport, stars streamed past as the coalition fleet moved toward the ultimate confrontation. Somewhere ahead waited the Dominion Emperor himself, confident in his conventional military superiority. He had no idea he was about to face the galaxy's first dungeon master turned space admiral. The Dominion Emperor's flagship dominated the view screen like a metal moon. Around it, thousands of warships formed perfect geometric formations that had conquered star systems for over a century. The sight should have been terrifying, but Hyun-woo found himself oddly calm as he studied the enemy fleet. "Intelligence reports confirm the Emperor himself commands from the central dreadnought," So-jin announced from her communication station. "This is their entire remaining military force." Kethmar's crystalline form reflected the battle display's light as she calculated probabilities. "Even with our recent victories, they outnumber us 3-1. Their firepower advantage is overwhelming." "The Hive perceives imminent destruction," Zach 41 clicked nervously. "Standard engagement protocols ensure coalition defeat." Hyun-woo opened his notebook, but instead of looking for another adventure to copy, he stared at a blank page. For the first time since this whole situation began, he had run out of pre-written scenarios. The final boss battle would have to be completely improvised. "Then we do not engage them in a standard battle," he said, surprising himself with his confidence. Cole 9's massive stone features shifted into curiosity. "Explain your strategy, Commander." "I do not have one yet," Hyun-woo admitted. "But I know how to make one." He turned to address the mixed human and alien crew that had gathered on the bridge. "Everyone who has worked with me, I need your input. All of you. This is too big for any single person to plan." "Sir?" Dae-hyun looked confused. "You have been helping translate gaming concepts into military tactics," Hyun-woo explained. "Now I need everyone to think like gamers. If this was the final encounter in the most challenging game you ever played, how would you approach it?" The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this unusual request. Then Min-soo spoke up from his pilot station. "In flight games, when the boss is too strong to fight directly, you use the environment. Make the battlefield work for you instead of against you." "The asteroid field," Yoonji added, studying her tactical displays. "We could use the debris to break up their formations. And their size works against them," Young-ho contributed. "Big ships cannot maneuver quickly in tight spaces." So-jin leaned forward excitedly. "What if we turn their strength into a weakness? They expect us to be afraid of their numbers, but what if we use those numbers to cause confusion?" Hyun-woo felt the familiar rush of a good brainstorming session. just like when his D&D group worked together to solve impossible challenges. Keep going. What else? Misdirection, Dae-hyun suggested. Make them think we are doing one thing while we actually do another. Multiple objectives, added Min-ho from the demolitions team. Give them too many problems to solve at once. As ideas flowed from the human crew members, the alien commanders began contributing their own insights. Kethmar calculated optimal, positioning for maximum enemy confusion. Zach-41 offered hive mind coordination for simultaneous multi-vector operations. Call 9 provided structural analysis of enemy weak points. This is remarkable, Kethmar observed. Human planning methodology incorporates all available perspectives simultaneously. It is called brainstorming, Sojin explained. We throw out ideas without worrying if they are perfect, then combine the best parts into something new. For the next several hours, the Coalition Command developed the most complex battle plan in galactic history. Instead of following any single tactical doctrine, they blended creative thinking from dozens of species and backgrounds. The final strategy was beautiful in its chaotic complexity. Multiple small fleets would approach from different vectors, each with separate objectives. Some would focus on disrupting enemy communications, others would target supply lines, still others would create diversions to mask the real objectives. The Emperor will not know where to focus his attention, Hyunwoo explained as they reviewed the finished plan. By the time he figures out our real goal, it will be too late. And what is our real goal? Kethmar asked. Hyunwoo smiled. To make him so frustrated trying to counter our chaos that he makes a mistake, just like every overconfident boss monster I ever designed. The battle began at dawn, ship time. Coalition forces struck simultaneously from 17 different directions, each group executing seemingly unrelated missions. The Emperor's perfectly organized fleet found itself responding to threats that evaporated the moment they moved to counter them. Enemy forces are fragmenting, Sojin reported, as Dominion ships broke formation to chase targets that led them deeper into the asteroid field. Their command structure cannot coordinate responses to this many simultaneous actions. Phase 2, Hyunwoo ordered. All teams switch to secondary objectives. Just as the Dominion forces began adapting to the Coalition's apparent strategy, everything changed. Ships that had been running diversions suddenly became the main assault force. Support units transformed into strike teams. The entire battle plan shifted like a living thing. Impossible, came the Emperor's voice over intercepted communications. No military force can coordinate such chaos. What are these humans? They are gamers, Hyunwoo said quietly, though no one else understood the reference. The turning point came when Min-ho's demolitions team, disguised as a fleeing transport, managed to attach explosives to the Emperor's flagship while the massive ship was busy targeting what it thought was the Coalition's command vessel. The dreadnought is crippled, Yoonji announced triumphantly. Their command and control systems are offline. Without their central coordination, the Dominion fleet began to crumble. Individual ships found themselves isolated and outnumbered, as the Coalition's chaotic strategy suddenly revealed its underlying purpose. Every seemingly random action had been designed to separate and surround the enemy forces. Victory, Cole 9 rumbled in amazement. Complete and total victory. The Emperor's surrender came 3 hours later. Hyunwoo listened to the formal transmission with mixed emotions. Relief that the war was over, pride in what they had accomplished, but mostly gratitude for the friends who had helped him become something he never thought he could be. Commander Kim, Kethmar said during the post-battle celebration, your tactical innovations have changed warfare forever. Every military academy in the galaxy will study human strategic doctrine. Hyunwoo looked around the room at his fellow humans, all of whom were grinning at the irony. What the aliens would actually be studying were the principles of collaborative creativity, improvisation, and the willingness to try unconventional approaches. There is one thing I need to tell you all, Hyunwoo announced, getting the room's attention. The truth about human strategic doctrine. The aliens listened intently as he explained about games, about collaborative storytelling, about weekend gatherings where friends work together to overcome impossible challenges for fun. You mean your greatest military innovations came from recreational activities? Zach 41 clicked in astonishment. That is the point, So Jin said with a smile. Humans learn problem-solving skills through play. We practice creativity and teamwork because we enjoy it, not because we have to. Remarkable, Kethmar mused. Your species develops strategic thinking as entertainment. 3 months later, Hyunwoo found himself back on Earth, officially recognized as a war hero, but secretly just happy to be home. His small apartment looked exactly the same, though now it felt strange after months on starships. His laptop chimed with an incoming call from his D&D group, but this time the faces on screen included Dae-hyun, So-jin, Min-soo, and several alien friends who had become fascinated by collaborative storytelling. Okay, everyone, Hyunwoo said, opening a fresh notebook. Tonight we start a new campaign. It is called Guardians of the Galaxy, and you are all space marines who have to work together to stop an ancient evil from destroying the universe. Sounds familiar, Dae-hyun joked. The best stories always do, Hyunwoo replied, rolling a 20-sided die across his desk. Now, who wants to go first? As dice rolled and imagination took flight, the greatest military strategist in galactic history began his favorite job, helping friends tell amazing stories together. Some things he realized were more important than fame or glory. Outside his window, stars wheeled overhead, peaceful for the first time in decades. Somewhere among them, alien military academies were teaching courses on creative problem-solving and collaborative planning. The galaxy had learned that the best strategies came not from rigid doctrine, but from the simple human joy of playing games with friends. And in his small apartment, Hyunwoo smiled as his players argued about character, builds, and started planning their next impossible adventure.